Hi guys, welcome to Real Talk. So we went to Malawian independence in Derby.
54th?
Yeah, 54th independence. That's crazy. So while we were driving up there, we had a discussion about freedom and true independence, and just questioning whether we are truly free in the sense of being independent from obviously our previous colonizers and all the connotations associated with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it would be a good idea to just discuss that on this topic and see what we come up with. So I guess just talking about the sense of what is freedom in 2018.
Like the definition of it.
Oh yeah,
just to have like a starting point. So it says the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants, and then the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. So I guess in the sense that with Malawi, like how are we able to act, speak, or think as we want? Like, do we have those things?
Okay, so off the bat, if you're just asking, are we free? I'm going to say no. Sorry. We're not free. What do you think? Just like an overview of your thoughts.
We're not.
So the first one I think that got to me was free to speak, act, and what was it? Think as we feel as a people, right? So I think that the first thing that I'm drawn to is in 2014 they had this homosexuality case. I digress a little bit. Where obviously homosexuality in Malawi is illegal, and I don't really want to go into that. But the judgment that was given was based off what Malawi thinks, right?
As a culture,
as a country, as a free-thinking, free-living, independent country. But the fact that the judgment was able to be overturned because of external influences, I don't think that represents a free country. Because I think, obviously, this is just me at the basic level talking about it.
Yeah.
Malawi was threatened, like, we're going to withdraw aid if you don't reverse this and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the fact that people can influence your thoughts, influence your actions, does not represent a free country to me.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting that, like, despite the fact that we're sort of distanced from like the Europe or the West or whatever, there's still like a lot of external influence, whether it being aid or I don't know, like what we spoke about in a different video, like language and stuff.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I thought Chicho was taught, but I feel like English is more. Oh God, this is gonna get controversial, political. But like little things like that, like we need to watch what's going on in our daily lives and be able to understand like where all these traits or things are coming from. So yeah, I guess we're not really free.
I think for me, I want to read what the late President Dr. Banda said. He said that what is the life of the people underneath this freedom? And that is a true representation of what freedom is. And I think if we can all agree that life is pretty hard in Malawi for the majority of people. Obviously, you have the exceptions of people that are doing well, that like economically, financially, they're okay. But the majority of the population are struggling.
Yeah.
And I was not really there in the life of Dr. Banda.
Yeah.
But from when I was young to now, you can see the change and the difference. And obviously, life is not great. And I think, to be honest, it's even worse off than when I was younger.
Yeah. That's something that the current president actually said, that the typical Malawians are poorer now than they were during colonial times. And that's saying something. Like, we thought detaching ourselves will help us grow as a people, but we're stepping backwards, which isn't right. 2018.
It's been 54 years. And what have we done with that independence? I'm not sure. And I think, to be honest, the fact that I think you were telling me something about the World Bank and
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and the percentage of our economy that we rely on aid.
Yeah, so in 2013, the World Bank said that Malawi is an aid-dependent country with 60% to 80% of its development budget financed by external sources. 60 to 80% of what we receive is from elsewhere.
So that's more than half. Meaning, if somebody threatens that, our economy crumbles.
Yeah.
Like if that year we're depending on 80%, and for some reason that is not stabilized and that is being questioned because of some sort of policy that we're not putting through, I feel like the whole country's economy will just crumble because we cannot sustain ourselves on 20%.
Yeah. So I think the issue is not being able to stand on our own 2 feet, as well as not seeing ahead as well. Like, we're not looking at our future and what we want to achieve as well. It's almost like, is it instant gratification? Like, what we have now, let's just enjoy it now. Whereas we shouldn't think like that. Yeah, and I think that says something as a people as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key differences between Malawi and obviously the UK. Like, I've seen a lot of policies that are brought through into the UK that we don't see the benefits of until generations to come. But they're more willing to plant something that future generations will enjoy.
Yeah.
Whereas the mentality in Malawi that I see is, how does it benefit me?
Yeah.
I don't really care about the next generation. I'm not going to be there. So let me enjoy, let me benefit myself. Kind of like screw the next generation.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably where a main problem is as well.
And do you think that comes from wanting to actually like enjoy what you have as well in that moment, because you don't know whether you're going to have it later on in the future? That lack of stability in our country, where you got to the point where you're just like, let me enjoy it because I don't know what's going to happen. Like, if the economy in the state, it might crumble because 60 to 80%, like,
then let me just enjoy it now.
Just enjoy it now.
Or probably, but I think also people's mentality needs to change. We need to think more of community-based benefit as opposed to individualized benefit. I don't know if that makes sense. In the sense that when I'm doing something, of course you want to, as a human being, of course you want to reap from what you're doing. You want to benefit. But it's also nice to be mindful of, how does this benefit my country as a whole? How does this develop us? How does this move us closer to being truly independent?
Yeah.
Because for me, I can never truly say that Malawi is independent for as long as we're relying on aid.
Yeah.
And
that's a huge
having
part.
China influencing us on what we're building, and most of the businesses are owned by people who are not Malawians. Like, I don't understand. For me, that's not true independence. True independence to me would be self-sufficiency as a country.
Yep.
Economically.
Which is what Dr. Banda wanted.
As in, we're able to sustain our country and not fear that aid will be withdrawn if we make certain decisions.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I agree with any of the policies that are being brought in or whatever, but it's important for a country to be sovereign and to actually have the power to decide what it's going to do.
Yeah, but I think the biggest part of the lack of freedom also comes from the leaders and people in power. God, if they watch
no shade,
but
real
like,
talk.
Real talk, guys. The people in power, like, if the people are trying to take a step forward, but then the people that are leading you, and you're investing in those people to help you and support you in, say, I don't know, starting a business, and they don't do that, it's just like you're stepping backwards because of the leaders that you have. And I think we've spoken about this. It tends to be, oh gosh. It's like the older, right? Yeah, it's the older generation and the older people who are currently in office, right? Yet when a young person tries or is interested in sort of sinking their teeth in politics, it's almost impossible for them to actually have a seat and have a voice, which also links to the fact that we don't really have the freedom
to speak.
Real talk, guys.
I'm just gonna say it. The problem one of the major problems is there's too much corruption in the government.
Y'all need
to stop stealing this money. I'm sorry, but like, just take what's owed to you. Take what's fair. Like, we understand that you are working hard. It's not easy to run a country, but my goodness, think about your people. Like, this selfish behavior of just taking all the money, and even when the aid comes, it's not benefiting the people it's there for.
Yeah.
And this is why we're not developing. This is why we're not free. Because the money is not being spent on what it's there for.
Medication.
Why are hospitals not having medication?
Guys, imagine in the UK, you go to a pharmacy and you go there to buy medication and they tell you that they don't have it.
And you go to 4 other pharmacies around the area and none of them have it. So, am I just supposed to die?
A matter of life and death.
So, what happens to the aid that's given to the Ministry of Health? Where's it gone? Surely that should be buying the medication. I just don't... The corruption, I think the foundation of all the problems is the corruption within the government.
The office.
Somebody needs to be accountable. I'm sorry. And this is the problem is somebody who is well-meaning can enter the government, but because you're surrounded by so much corruption, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying everyone is in the government is corrupt, but the majority of you are.
Yeah, you're associated and affiliated with those people, and like it's
and
hard to.
If like that one angel who really wants to do good is surrounded by corruption, like how much are you really going to do?
And I feel like within history as well, people who've tried to do good have been silenced,
or they just remove you from the position so that you have no influence of any form.
Yeah, I've read that there's been a few instances where like when a person in office as well does something bad, they've been pardoned, and it's quite insane how the Malawian government is quite relaxed and chill. Like, I was thinking of it in a Western point of view. The public response alone would make you leave office.
Exactly. How many people have resigned, like in positions here, because of the public perceptions and how people are speaking about you? That's another thing about freedom of expression. Is there such a thing? Because are people really free in Malawi to voice their true opinions without fear that?
Oh, yeah, that's the other article that I read about.
Without fear that something is going to happen to you or your family, or you're going to lose your job, or like,
So, on Malawi Misa.org, I was reading something about freedom of expression within the media, and the fact that this group is trying to, I think, so there's certain laws that people of power are using to stop those within the media who are trying to like get news out there. So it's like that the fact that people of power are able to sort of
silence the media. Yeah.
And like, I don't know, the entire human rights and freedom, as we read, comes from being able to speak and think for yourself. And the fact that this is happening is almost like, what's the point? If you can't speak for yourself, if you can't think for yourself, what are we doing? It's really,
And I think another thing I thought about when I thought of being independent and are we truly free, I feel like we're not developing as a people because of obviously we rely so much on aid. I think we have become complacent and just relaxed within our being. So people complain about, things are tough, or Malawi 2018, what's happening to Malawi, but then people are just waiting for somebody to hand them the solution. We need to be more proactive in fixing the problems that we see in Malawi.
Charity culture.
We're victims of that charity culture because we have been given so much aid that it's almost ruining us. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not needed, it's necessary at this point because people need to survive.
Support,
but then we need to start weeding ourselves away from that culture. We need to be like, okay, we're relying on it, but set ourselves goals on like by 20 something we need to we need to have been here. We need to progress here, kind of thing. Instead of just being like, yeah, let's get the aid and we'll see what happens. We need to become more self-sufficient. People need to be more proactive and innovative in thinking about ways for Malawi to be better. Like up until now, it baffles me that we rely on one source of electricity, Eskom. And then every single time, we all know that Eskom is going to cut our electricity, and they've got a system of cutting it every other day. You're sleeping in the dark. Why is nobody thinking of alternative source of electricity? Like, what happened to solar panel? What happened to...
We have all the sun.
And I'm sure water can generate electricity. Yeah. We're surrounded by one of the biggest lakes.
Yeah.
So why is nobody looking into that? Why are we just content with one source of electricity? And because they know they're the only ones, they're playing about. They'll just be playing hopscotch with your electricity.
Do you think it's education as well? Like, are there people out there who have been educated enough to want to do something like that, or I don't know? As you said, sometimes when some Malawians feel they have the me culture, like I want to do things for me, whereas if you do something this big, it's for a whole people.
To be honest, the government needs to start looking into alternative sources of electricity,
please,
because your people are sleeping in the dark. Your people do not have electricity 24/7. This is not what we voted you in here for. I'm sorry, real talk. But like, yeah, I think the mentality of me, that's another reason maybe why people are not innovative. You might have the sources maybe to look into these things, but because you're doing well, you have a generator, you have solar panels, it doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
You don't really care about your neighbor and how they're living.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, because I think African culture is meant to be more collective as a community as opposed to just individualized. And this is where we have kind of lost that.
And even the process of building something, if you get everyone involved, if everyone sees the benefits of it, I'm sure it would work without any like external help or financial help or anything like that. It's just the inability to think and find ways around our, I guess, whatever's hindering us.
And also, like you mentioned education, that's also another question of mine, because I'm like, for so long, Unima was the only university offering education to students. It's only now I'm hearing about Catholic University or this other university, that university. Like, how is the country able to function on one university? I don't understand. And you're encouraging this education, but then the country does not have jobs to offer kids who are coming out of education. So all these kids are graduating and there's no jobs. And this is where we go back to being innovative. If you're creating alternative sources of electricity, you're creating jobs, because people are going to have to do those jobs. But if we're just going to remain in this static, one-way system of doing things, this is where kids are not going to have jobs. Because where are the jobs coming from? Because the job levels will still remain the same.
Yeah.
So, and more people are graduating, but there's no new jobs for them to take.
Yeah.
And like the elderly people in Malawi, they don't want to retire.
Yeah.
Just, you see them in positions for long. So like, where are these young people meant to be after graduating, really?
And it's difficult to start something on your own when you don't have the finances or ways, I don't know, a way to start. So it's like a loop.
Definitely.
Never-ending cycle.
Yeah, and it's crazy, because you think of 54 years. 54 years seems like a long time. And I think also maybe it's a mistake of ours, but we're kind of judging Malawi against other countries.
Yeah, that's true.
And then when you judge them against other countries, countries who possibly got their independence later than us as well.
Yeah.
And you see that they're doing so well.
Yeah.
And they're more progressive than us. Like Zambia, which is just next door to us. Is it next door?
Close.
I know we speak the same language, so neighbors.
Yeah, people then.
Zambia, next door, they have Barclays. Do you know that?
Huh?
They have Barclays. Zambia has Barclays.
What do we have?
We have banks, but like I'm just saying, they have an international bank. So online banking transactions are easier, but we're just next door. And
is it because we're trying to stay within our own circles? Are we trying to stay Malawian?
Are we really though?
Are we really trying to stay Malawian?
We're not. We're not trying. I'm sorry, real talk. We're not trying to stay as Malawians. Sorry, Stella, but we're not trying to stay as Malawians, because if we were, our culture would also be strong. But it's not, because we're on that respect. When it comes to music, when it comes to how we dress, when it comes to the sort of food we're eating, we're okay to take external influences. Or everybody wants to be like Americans. Everybody wants to be like the British. But when it comes to progression economically and actually bettering our country, then we want to remain culturally relative. I don't see how that works. Nah, sorry. I just think the people who are in charge of developing our countries are kind of lazy. I'm sorry.
If it doesn't affect you, then you're not going to do anything about it. That's the mentality that's going around. It's not good. It's not healthy for you, for your conscience. I'm joking.
For the country, it's not good.
For the country, it's not good.
Definitely, I think.
I'm sure there are young people out there who are trying to make changes within their own communities, or even on a bigger scale, but they're not being. I don't know. They're not progressing because of the situation that they're in. So to you guys, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it only takes small steps, man. One day we'll get there. But I think the problem is also sometimes when even if you have good intentions, you can eventually they give up. Like imagine you're like a source of light. There's only so much power somebody can have to resist things. There's only like you can have the good intentions. You can be maybe like within the government, and somehow you get coerced, and you just turn corrupt. That's how this whole corrupt business is able to continue, because new people come in, well-meaning people. Yes, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to make this place better. And then you realize that you're fighting a losing battle. There's blocks ahead of you of people who have gotten used to it.
It's because it's such a strong foundation. Like, it's such a strong system that it's like, if you're trying to make a change, it's history and history and history. Generations of, people that have been building this system. So it is difficult, but maybe 60-year. It depends.
And I'm just going to put it out there. Sorry. No shade, no tea. Just real talk. It's because also Malawi has a lot of discrimination against women. So there's not a lot of women within important roles. And I read somewhere which said you cannot be truly free and independent if 50% of your citizens are being oppressed. And there's a lot of oppression against women in different respects, whether it be them attaining certain job roles like CEOs, or even like becoming a president. In Malawi, it's kind of difficult for women to attain those jobs. And these gender-specific roles of women have to just stay home and look after the kids, even in 2018.
Yeah, it's a very deep cultural thing.
Yeah. So I think that also plays a hand of we're not truly free, because women are not truly free in Malawi. Of course, there's been a lot of progression, and I can see a lot of progression.
Yeah, there's I think the president signed a bill to like change the marriage age from like kids in 16 to 18 or something, which is really good.
But that's really good in theory, but in practice, people are still being married at 12 and 14, and the fact that there's a lot of child marriages, child rapes, all this going on, which are culturally acceptable because it's tradition. This fissy tradition where when a girl reaches a certain age,
they have to
like all these little cultural traditions within different parts of Malawi. Those are things that lead to oppressing women and mean that we're not on an equal playing field with men, and socially we're just oppressed to a certain degree. Obviously the oppression is not as strong as we can't go out in public, we can't have a say, but there's like systematic oppression.
A few years ago there was that thing where women had to wear chitenje.
that's gonna be a topic for another video. That's gonna be a whole video on that. But yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where the women are still being dictated to on how you should dress and
outside
and
in public.
You should be at home looking after kids. I'm not saying you shouldn't be at home looking after kids, but in 2018, I think women can do both. You can look after kids and still pursue your career. It's not a problem. But I digressed.
In a system that doesn't accept you and is oppressing you, it's difficult to help it progress.
And the question was, are we truly free? If you ask a woman in Malawi who's being oppressed, her answer will be no, I'm not free. If she even knows the concept of freedom. Because sometimes you're so deep-rooted in this idea of what you should do that you might not even know that the oppression is happening towards you.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's systematic oppression where it's not obvious.
Yeah.
But it's happening.
Yeah.
And
it's the culture.
I'm sure it's happening.
It's natural. If you grow up thinking it's okay, it's natural, then you don't know any other way.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the key problems as well, because half of the citizens are somehow being oppressed. So I can't say that we have attained true freedom. But yeah. What do you guys think?
It's been intense because there's a lot of different points raised and it's all jumbled up and not very clear, but it's because we're just bouncing off each other and like things that we've read and thought about.
Passion behind what we're saying.
Yeah, so you don't have to agree with everything, but tell us what you think. And
just a quick disclaimer, these are just our viewpoints. We're in no way saying these are facts.
Yeah.
These are just things that we have been thinking about, that have been playing on our minds.
Yeah.
That when we read things or when we hear certain news, we kind of just
put things together.
Yeah, we're just kind of like flowing with the ideas in our heads. So nobody should come for us or, deny our entry
to
Malawi.
Free here. Freedom of speech, guys.
We're just trying to generate conversation.
Yeah.
That's the main basis of this channel.
Yeah.
To generate conversation.
In fact, you can tell us what you think. Do you think we're free? If you think we're free,
you tell us how you think we're free. Yeah. And we're just really trying to generate conversation, like we said, conversation that's going to...
It's healthy.
Yeah. That's going to help us. That's going to grow us. Is that a word?
To help us grow.
Grow us.
Grow us.
That's going to develop us. That's going to maybe question and challenge our thinking. It's always good to be challenged.
Yeah.
And so please, no negative comments, only positivity. It's good to have a debate.
Yeah.
A healthy debate.
Yeah.
So tell us what you think, and hopefully we've ignited some sort of interest within you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the video. Like, subscribe, and comment.
Like, share, subscribe, comment,
and
all that, and watch the next video. Thank you. Bye.